Okay, this is part two of the generation gap. Now, I'm getting to the point of why the present generation is in the place it is now. Now, I'm gonna get to another thing on that same point. The reason why we're not listening to you now is a lot of you may say, though, younger generation not listening to the older generation. Well, the reason why a lot of individuals are not listening these days is because you're not saying anything that really applies to right now. I can go over the many and millions of times the elders in my family have been talking about all the struggles that they went through during the 60s. And in the back of my mind was, did you march with Martin? Did the dogs and the hoses get turned on and sicked on you? No, that wasn't everybody's situation. Yes, you may have dealt with the color only signs and the white only signs, things like that, but that doesn't apply to today. There's a new type of racism in the world right now that is more undercover, more under the table, still very poisoning and painful at times for certain people when they deal with it face to face, but for the most part, it's not the same. It's not blatant as it used to be. Today is more sublime. You know when somebody is a certain way and they act a certain way and they talk a certain way and they treat you a certain way, but they never actually say it. So it doesn't apply. You know? And when a younger person says, well, I don't see it, they don't actually see it. They actually don't get it sometimes because what they see and what they feel has nothing compared to what you saw and what you felt. Today it's all undercover. And when something bad happens and they can't explain it, you know, what can you do? What can you tell them? Racism is not the biggest problem anymore. It never really was the biggest problem, but it was seen as a huge problem because it was so blatant and so pronounced back in the day. Today, like yesterday, it's still around. It's still a huge problem. It's still a huge issue, but it's not the same issue. You still need marches. You still need people to speak out. You still need to stand up for yourself. But now, just like any protest, like war protest, and protests against and for abortion, and so on and so forth, there's so many things to chop away at your rights to assembly. And that's what the older generation fails to understand in some cases. Like when we didn't feel right about something, we got out and we marched. Well, today it's completely different. When you come up and you want to get out and you want to march, so to speak. We had situations where we tried to do some things, whether it was to stop or get more funding for a certain program or whatever. You couldn't just go out in the street and start walking like you used to. You couldn't then, but you really can't now. You have to go to city hall. You have to go to the courthouse. Get a legal document stating that you can march, and they're gonna give you a date. Usually that date is a day when nobody is out there. Maybe it's on a Saturday when the courthouses and city hall is actually closed. When the main office that you want to go and make your stand and make your vocal voice heard will not be listening. That's not a coincidence. They're trying to say we want to make sure that traffic's at a minimum so you can walk and they won't be holding up any traffic. If you're really protesting, you want as many people inconvenienced and hurt by that as possible so the message can get out there that there's a problem and there's people out here who really want things to change. The older generation doesn't understand it. They look at that as people being lazy. No, it's a situation where people have to jump through a million hoops to do anything. The old generation failed the current generation, and the current generation doesn't know how to do anything because they make bad decisions based on one thing and one thing in particular. Any generation can look at it this way: the older generation was always down on them for doing something different. The main reason why during the 60s and the 70s it was good to be rebellious. You know, the hippies, that was beautiful. The Panthers, that was beautiful. And everybody was attracted to those two segments of society. People, a lot of people hated the Panthers, but at the same time, a lot of people revered them, and they still do to this day. People looked down on the hippies for what they were doing, and they didn't want to do this and they wouldn't do that, but it was beautiful, and a lot of people still revere the hippies for doing something that everybody wanted to do. Today, the whole situation is different. If you don't have the newest, greatest, most technological item, you're not sexually appealing to some people. You have to be fashionable and flashy, and you have groups of individuals who really don't care what they dress like and who have their own style of beauty and fashion or whatnot. But the media is so pronounced today; it's everywhere. And if you don't look like a certain person on TV or whatnot, you're not appealing to a lot of people. And that's more of an impact today than it was yesterday. It's not a thing of the older generation and the present generation as much as it is a situation with the next generation. A lot of people my age, 18 to 30 group, are starting to have families and children. This becomes very scary if you really think about the track record of the older generation educating the younger generation. The reason why it's scary is because we fail to teach our children more than just how to survive. We don't teach them how to, not adapt, but change things. We can teach you how to adapt. We can teach you how to fit in, but we don't teach you how to make things change. We don't teach you how to make things really happen. That's why Obama and the Democrats really latched onto the word and the idea change, because nobody was actually changing anything for themselves. So they saw an opportunity to come in and use a phrase. And guess what happened? People jumped on the bandwagon throughout the world because everybody does want change to occur. Yet, if you understood anything, you would know the only person that can change anything is you. You don't realize that. You're caught up in the idea that somebody's going to change it for you. And that's where parenting comes in. More people are spoiled than they think. More parents took care of their children a lot longer than you think. So, I'm going to have to touch on this again, get a little bit further into it, and try to really get to the meat of the situation. But we're heading somewhere. This is part 2, the generation gap, and this is Jolly Jamil. Be easy.